It's Modern Business. Welcome back. Today we have a very special guest by the name of Bob Carr, known by his friends and colleagues as Rock. He's the founder of Heartland Payment Systems, one of the largest payment processors in America. They serve hundreds of thousands of local businesses and many great franchise systems. Rock built it from nothing and ended up ringing the bell on Wall Street, taking it public and ultimately selling it for many billions of dollars. I think it's close to $5 billion. And through that process, Rock earned a reputation as a trailblazer for ethical reform in the payments industry. And he's given back in incredible ways. And in this interview, you'll take away some of the big lessons learned in business that he learned. And we also uncover some of the key points in his two great books. And you'll learn interesting facts behind the causes that he's so dearly passionate about. His story is very inspiring. Rock was the son of a waitress who worked night shifts to support their family, and he grew to be one of my favorite American examples of grit and hard work and values in action. Today, he serves on the board of trustees at Lewis College in Illinois. He's the founder of the Give Something Back Foundation, which provides financial support to college students from poor and working class backgrounds. And he's the founder and CEO of Beyond Inc. Welcome, I'm Ryan Hicks, and this is Modern Business, the podcast to learn from franchise business leaders and explore new business technology. Our community is about sharing knowledge and tools that help us achieve our goals in business and beyond. Thanks for being here and welcome to Modern Business. So we will cut over to the interview, and before we do, apologies for the background noise here and there. I was unable to make it back to my mini home makeshift studio for the interview, and so I called up a friend of mine by the name of Umer, who reserved me a breakout room at his office. Shout out to papernapkin.io for hooking me up on that. Here's the interview with Bob Carr. Rock, thanks for joining us today. Welcome to the Modern Business Podcast.
Thank you, Ryan.
So before we jump in, Rock, you guys are on a roll with Give Something Back and the Give Something Back Foundation, and it seems like every time I turn around, you're writing a check and putting folks through school. So first and foremost, congratulations on that initiative, and there's a lot of people out there very proud of what you guys are doing with that.
Well, thank you. We're dropping the bucket to what's needed in this country, but at least we're making a little bit of difference for some people.
Absolutely. And we'll get a little bit into that. You wrote a book called Through the Fires, and I found it to be a great treatise on grit and on doing the right thing. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs out there who are going through their own fires?
Well, I'd give several comments. I would say one is that everybody goes through fires. We think that some people have it pretty easy, and it looks like maybe from afar that things are easy for some people. But we're all fighting our battles every day, and I think the most important thing for a person to do, a person who's an entrepreneur and committed to being responsible for himself or herself financially, is to not give up your principles along the way. It's so easy to bend a little bit and lose your self-respect and your feeling of integrity. I just think that's too high of a price to pay, and no matter what, I think you've got to do what you believe is the right thing to do, because you will come out of it. You will figure it out. And it took me 20 years. It took me literally 20 years before I made any sort of decent money. I would have been much better off the first 20 years of my career having earned a salary, except I wouldn't have learned what I learned by making the mistakes that I made and trying to figure things out, the tough way. So just keep at it. If you have to have a business model that makes sense. You have to have a product or a service that people want to buy because they like it. They like it so much they're going to refer it to their friends and buy it again. And I think that's the number one thing right there is you got to have a product that people want and you've got to maintain your integrity. So that would be my advice.
There's a lot to unpack there, and I'm going to actually have a follow-on question at the end that gets into beyond and some opportunities that could be out there. So we'll jump into that. But one of the things that stood out to me when I look at your companies, your books, and your work is radical transparency. And that kind of feeds into when you talked about principles. Ray Dalio has a new book called Principles, and it's absolutely spot on. But why do you think radical transparency and doing the right thing, when I look back at Heartland, when you had the financial crisis or the security crisis, you're radically transparent. So why do you think that's an important trait for modern business leaders today?
Well, Ryan, I've never heard the term radical transparency until now, and you just used it 3 times, so I get the point. I think radical transparency is just a emotional way of saying being transparent. I mean, you either are or you're not, and it's sort of a black and white issue, I think. And, I hate giving this answer to your question, but we're in a world of deliberate opacity. People try to hide what they're doing because they're ashamed of what they're doing, and or they think their customer wouldn't do business with them if they knew the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And so, I say this, having, come through a long career and come out pretty well. But as I said before, the first couple of decades of my career weren't very successful. And I think along the way, businesses got more and more opaque and tried to hide things. And right now, the fact of the matter is our capitalist culture today in America is one where the financial services industry is dominated by people who don't tell the truth. And it is a really big advantage to an entrepreneur if they can gain the respect of their colleagues and win over customers based upon the fact that you're going to tell them the truth all the time, and you're going to honor your commitments. With our new company Beyond, we created the Merchant Bill of Rights in my previous company, and that was all about transparency. And it was a lot of people were upset that we would call for people to actually tell the truth about what was being charged by the banks and the networks and their services. But with Beyond Promises, we actually make promises that we always kept in my previous company, but we never advertised them because I wasn't sure until a long time into it that those things would allow us to be successful. But we were able to be successful with the promises that we now make as an everyday part of our life.
Very good. And I've had, just a sidebar on that, I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of the folks in the payments industries, movers, players, shakers, and I'm a little bit younger, but folks tell me people thought you were crazy back in Heartland when you were building your previous company. You had a model that was way different. You had a way you went to market with transparency, and they thought you were crazy. When folks are getting ridiculous basis points, you came in and showed them what was happening. So I think your career has shown that. I want to shift over to your new book, Working Class to College. Can you talk a little bit about the educational class divide that exists and some of the implications that this reality has?
Sure. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart, for sure. Like many of the listeners, I'm sure that many of them are the first person in their family to ever go to college, as I was, and to see the difference that it makes in a person's life. About 1/3 of Americans graduate from college, which means 2/3 don't. The third of Americans who graduate from college, on average, earn $1 million more than those that don't graduate from college. Attending college, on the other hand, without graduating is really usually a disaster for people. There's 40 million Americans that have started college and they haven't finished it. So they have the double whammy of not having a degree but having to pay off student debt with a salary and compensation level that's that of a high school graduate, typically. For somebody that's in STEM, like in computers and different math and engineering fields, the average income differential is $3.5 million. From somebody that goes on to college and gets a degree in engineering or math or any other scientific endeavor, they're going to make $3.5 million more. So the advantage of an education is obvious. College is very expensive, but there's a lot of problems with the system, the educational system. There's a lot of really well-intentioned people who get it wrong, and they give terrible, terrible advice to kids. And that's why I wrote the book, Working Class to College, The Perils and Promise for Working Class America.
I have two follow-up questions, but before I do that, am I correct in recalling, and if we're not, we'll have to strike this out and edit it out, but am I correct in recalling, I saw on, I think it was linked, an article that you wrote in a magazine, you were elected to one of the Obama administration task force. A lot of people were bowing out and moving, but you ended up staying because it's important to stand with the American people and to, regardless, rising above the left or the right and the this and the that and all the politics behind it, it's important to have leadership in there that are actively tackling these issues in the educational system. Were you part of that, or am I just making that up?
Well, I think there may be a little bit of confusion. I was appointed by President Obama to the National Infrastructure Advisory Board, which is about security and harm that can be done to the major infrastructure in the country. And what did happen was once Trump was elected, President Obama increased the membership on the committee from about 8 active people or 10 active people. He appointed 12 new people onto the National Infrastructure Advisory Board, and they all resigned as a group once some of the comments that Trump made, upset a lot of us. They resigned from their position. So it was sort of a publicity stunt, I think, for some people who really had no interest in being on the committee in the first place.
Got it. Going back to the divide that exists, can you talk about a couple of ways to reduce college costs? I think in your book you list out just some interesting things that folks should look at and a couple of ways that you might be able to reduce costs to college.
Yeah, I can talk about that for as long as you want me to. I think first is to understand that a $70,000 a year tuition doesn't get you a lot more than going to community college and going to a good, inexpensive 4-year school. So you need to understand up front in high school what it's going to cost you to go to college and how you're going to pay for it. 40% of Americans are eligible for Pell Grants, meaning that the family income is below $50,000 generally. If you have more kids, then it could be higher than $50,000. But 40% of Americans are eligible, and that pays a significant part of tuition and fees. If you go to community college, it'll pay all your community college costs and a little bit left over. So one of the recommendations we make is take advantage of going to community college, get your general education courses out of the way, and go get your bachelor's degree. People don't care where you get your bachelor's degree. That may not be true for law school or medical school or other professions or other areas. Graduate school, maybe is more important because of the part of the career that you're interested in. Some colleges are better than others, but a bachelor's degree by itself is just worth a lot. And it doesn't make that much difference from what school it came. So that's one area. Another area is when you're in high school, take AP courses that will transfer onto a four-year college or a community college. And in many communities now, you can actually get college credit towards your associate's degree while you're still in high school. So all those things don't cost anything. They just take, reading a little bit and understanding how the system works. And again, the Working Class to College book, that's what it's devoted to. One of the biggest mistakes, and I just have to say this, I went to a great school, University of Illinois, but it wasn't Harvard and it wasn't Yale and or Stanford or Princeton. But it was a great school, and I was really proud that I went there, etc. We had a good football team. I graduated with Dick Butkus, so
wow,
we had some
he was in my fraternity.
How about that?
Yeah.
But if I'd gone to Eastern Illinois University or Northern or Western or Southern or any one of other great schools in Illinois, it would have not changed my career, one bit. I don't think.
Very true. That's good advice.
So the idea of having a dream school, let me just make one more point here, Ryan. Mm-hmm. The idea of going to your dream school, I mean, isn't that wonderful? Well, what about your dream car? You want a Rolls Royce when you graduate from high school? Nobody goes out and buys a Rolls Royce, but people will go out and buy a Rolls Royce education, and they'll pay it off with student debt. And that student debt is as bad as a mortgage for a house at times. I've seen student debt as high as $250,000.
All things equal, it is worse when you're coming out of school with your earning capacity. If you just look at it and all things equal, it's worse.
Absolutely.
For most folks. Anything else to unpack there, or we can move on? I have another question.
Well, there's a lot of things that you can do. There's a lot of money out there that is looking for the right kinds of students to apply. There's a lot of scholarship money out there, and I encourage people to do some research, do some work, go after it. A lot of kids are able to find scholarships they never dreamt were available.
Beyond your book, Working Class to College, do you have any other resources for folks to go look at, or places that you might point people to start that?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have a website called giveback.ngo. NGO stands for non-governmental organization. Giveback.ngo has a listing of scholarship opportunities that are where you can go find where the scholarship opportunities are. So I would start with that website and follow through on looking up these organizations and scholarships that are available.
Excellent. Can you share one, and it can be high level, but one of the inspiring stories or accounts in your book? I know there's a lot of them. Can you share a little bit about one of the inspiring stories?
Well, I think one of the inspiring stories that gets a lot of people's attention is the way we treated our employees. I've said, and I'm surprised to be saying this at this stage of my career, but the most satisfying day I've had in my career was not the day that I rang the bell on the New York Stock Exchange to take our company public. I thought that was always the highest achievement you could get as an entrepreneur who had big ideas. But it was the day that I got a survey back from the Best Places to Work organization telling me that 87% of my employees thought that my company was a, quote, a great place to work. I just was really excited about that, and I spent a lot of time talking about the 87% and what they liked, but I also talked a lot about the 13% and what they didn't like, and that was just a very satisfying part of my career, and I want to do that part again, and that's what I'm working on, is to try to build a really great staff of very committed people who really want to do a great job for our customers.
Kudos to that. In today's modern world, that's hard to do. Whenever I was talking with someone who's highly respected in your industry, in the payments and financial transactions industry, they said that as you move beyond, pun intended, they said that your company is Bob Carr 2.0. Can you talk a little bit about your work at Beyond and what you guys are up to?
Yeah, I just think this is the most exciting time to ever be an entrepreneur. There's so many broken industries in this country, and the technology is so powerful that virtually all the systems that we built over the years, I mean, I go back into the 60s building infrastructure, everything that's out there is going to be changed. It is being changed as we speak by moving to the cloud, all the mobile technologies that are out there. Just the tools that are available give us all kinds of new dimensions of opportunities to provide valuable services to consumers and other businesses. So we're trying to take advantage of this, plus our ability to have capital without going to Wall Street and having an employee-owned company. It's kind of it's really pretty neat to be able to start over with a blank sheet of paper after having a long career in an industry that turned out pretty good.
Excellent. And for the entrepreneurs out there that are an entrepreneur, but they would like an infrastructure to plug into, where do they go to find out more about your company and how they can take advantage of that, whether it's by an employee and participating in the company as an employee, like you mentioned, employee-owned company, or whether it's, I don't know if you have an agent model or not, but where can folks find more information about that?
Yeah, we don't have an agent model, Ryan, but we have a great model for entrepreneurs who want to build a business within a pretty safe structure. Our website is called getbeyond.com. The name of the company is Beyond, but the name of the website is getbeyond.com, and that will talk about our product line and our opportunities, our Beyond promises, and tells you who we are.
Excellent. And I'll just add one more comment to when you're talking about the technologies changing and all the rest. I personally believe that to the core. It's why I started this podcast called Modern Business. A lot of what I do is in the franchise world. I'm super passionate about the franchise business model, and in particular, the tools and technologies that franchises use to scale. And so that's why I wanted to create this podcast. But it is one of the most interesting times ever, I believe, because we have all this infrastructure and a lot of it's changing. I have so many questions that I want to ask you, but in terms of time, for time purposes, we won't jump into those. The last thing I want to ask is, for those in our audience, you referenced it earlier, that don't know anything about Give Something Back and your foundation. Can you, I mean, it's an incredible thing that you've built. From my view, it's helping bring folks that are less fortunate, and it's a mentorship and a scholarship program, and I think you have close to 100% graduation rate for those folks. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that program and what that is? Yeah,
great. Thanks for the opportunity to do that. Yeah, I started a scholarship program back in 2001. I had gotten a scholarship. It meant a lot to me. It was only $250, but the idea that somebody would give me something somebody who I didn't even know was stunning to me. And I always wanted to give back, and it took me a long time to be able to do that. But that was the germ of starting an organization that has morphed over the years. But what we do today is we select Pell Grant eligible kids. These are the kids who have family income of under $40,000 or $50,000. And we give priority to children of incarcerated mothers and children who have been placed in foster homes by the courts. And we take applications in. We'll get probably close to 1,000 applications this year across the 7 states that we operate in. And about 350 of those kids will get full ride scholarships in the 9th grade that will get them through high school with a mentor assigned to them, and they'll go to one of our college partners where tuition, fees, room, and board are all paid 100% up front. So, with the success of my previous company, We have $35 million invested in this. We've purchased 1,500 seats we have staffs in California, Kansas, Illinois, and here in the New Jersey area. So it's a program that's designed to help the kids who have the least chance of going to college, and those are foster kids and children of incarcerated mothers and fathers, but mothers particularly. And we change the lives of these kids. We have kids that are now, our initial graduates are in their early 30s. 91% of our kids graduate in four years, which is double the national average. And it's because our kids have mentors and they're required to go to school full time. And it's a program we're very proud of, and it has remarkable success. And we have a nice amount of support across the country from people who believe in our program. And our website is giveback.ngo. I encourage the listeners to take a look at it.
Bob, Rock, thanks so much, man. You are very gracious. You're a hero to many, and in my opinion, one of the great entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial success stories in America. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan. It's been an honor. Thank you.